Listener beware, Lanuari the killer is on the loose, and in this video it can cause nightmares, bleeding, death, mild headaches, and sensitivity to mild sauce. He lures in his victims by clicking on videos. He's called the YouTube Clicker Killer.
I've been hearing stories of the Slender-Man. I don't really know what it is, but I'm still scared. Whoa. What's this?
Throughout the years, the realms of horror and internet culture have been influenced and swayed by the genre that was known as creepypasta. A dominant sway for scary stories and fandom characters, it spread like a plague, giving many children the biggest nightmares in the 2010s from the simplest of JPEGs. With time, it has proven to bring long-lasting effects to those who were involved, and put a lot of influence into many modern-day media that we now have. Creepypasta started on 4chan in 2001 with a story called Ted the Caver, although the term creepypasta wasn't created until 2007, just being referred to as copy and paste stories for the few years before that. This created the term creepypasta, which ultimately means copy and paste, but in a scary and evil way. With the newly created culture, it didn't get a big boom until 2009 because the character of Slender-Man. He was created for a photo competition, and this would not only implement the character as a full phenomenon, but also creepypasta as a temporary household name. This culture bred other big characters such as Jeff the Killer and the Rake, along with stories that were very big that weren't too associated with the fandom, like the Russian sleep experiment. Many stories were made, and the fandom dominated internet horror from around 2009 to 2014. If you weren't involved in it, you were guaranteed to have seen some of the iconic characters or consumed the media of creepypasta without even realizing it. They're all horror stories that originate on the internet and involve an original character or create something new out of pre-existing material. The stories written online are the absolute foundation of what creepypasta is, but with all pieces of work, things tend to age. I retrieved it up and entered my parents' car, not mentioning Edwin's corpse. Why? I looked at the thing I had picked up and nearly vomited. I was holding my stolen happy and kidney with some black substance.
How do you know that? How do you look at this fucking kidney and go, that bitch is mine?
Also, how did the doctor go? We don't know how you lost your kidney, sorry.
He held up a nearby mirror and I saw myself. I had a large gash in my left cheek.
Dude, I'm sorry, wait, can you imagine? Can you imagine your brother walks into your room and there's like a gash in his cheek, and instead of being like, dude, bro, are you okay? Or like, dude, there's a cut in your cheek. You like look for the nearest mirror.
My concern is the story, where all he did was rip his eyelids and his mouth out, showing he's going insane. He hasn't threatened them, but they're automatically gonna go get the gun.
There's definitely mixed reviews on what qualifies as good stories now and what are acceptable, and creepypasta as a media can still be loved despite the fact.
Black all around the eyes and a black feminine smile. It also had a black lace covering the eye holes of the mask, so even though someone couldn't see my eyes, I could see them. There was also a long black dress with a turtleneck, black gloves, and a black wig with beautiful curls. Along with all these things, there was a bouquet of black roses and a sharp kitchen knife. How many fucking black? Just say it's all black.
Evil bitch. Then I shut my eyes and looked away from him. Then I muttered darkly, go fuck yourself. Then I turned to look at him again. You Joker reject! Dude, that slays.
Although varying in quality, these stories have been adapted in multiple forms like animation and other versatile means to kind of like expand on them, despite how simplistic their core writing is. Like how Slender-Man himself doesn't have an origin story, he was just a JPEG, but now he's a movie, and multiple games, and the biggest one of them all, but the stories were always supposed to be the focal point of what a creepypasta is. As mediocre as they are in retrospect, they still spawned any instances that made them beloved in an internet staple. The most important and biggest of these things were the characters at their core. These characters, while not the best written, are fundamental building blocks for a lot of newer stories today. They're also just so deranged in some of the best ways possible. I mean, who wouldn't be scared of a 14-year-old who's charged with a kitchen knife, telling them to go to sleep? Such a nice guy. Like Mary Sue's and Gary Stu's, creepypasta characters are the building blocks / mistakes we all love dearly, but taught us how to write better characters. If we take a gander at today's creepypastas and adjacent content, like My Little Pony Infection AUs, they'd be nowhere near as cool without all the characters like Pinkamena and Rainbow Dash put in their respective pastas. Characters like Slender-Man catapulted these ancient, dark, ominous, and unknown evils into the public eye in a way a lot of other stories tried. While these types of characters have always existed, Slender-Man absolutely shattered the mainstream and opened up the floodgates to this eldritch feeling of dread and possibility. Eyeless Jack, Marble Hornet's characters, and others also showed the internet that not only can you create your own worlds, you can become well known for it, even creating spin-offs and thousands of AUs and fan content to boot, or other characters like the Rake, who, I literally don't see the Rake, like, anywhere. Where is the Rake? It's really red, and I can't see anything. How can you see anything in this? Or Ben Drowned in Sonic.exe, video game characters that have questionable origins and stories that aren't the best, but are still part of the genre and are very big nonetheless. It incorporated creepypasta into any video game you could like, adding on to the lore and getting more people into the fandom. You certainly can't forget gems like Nina, Toby, and likewise fan favorites who became beacons for self-inserting and mass memes galore. Then we have Jane and Jeff, who managed to completely alter people's styles and subculture with their odd tales and their angsty nature.
I spat out the gag and looked him straight in the eyes, trying to hold his gaze. He tilted his head to the side and looked back at me. Then I shut my eyes and looked away from him. Then I muttered darkly, "Go fuck yourself." Then I turned to look at him again. "You Joker reject."
You're even funnier than I thought. Creepypasta became such a big piece of media that it actually got enlisted to become a movie. Except the movie, fucking sucks. Slender-Man 2018 is a horrible film, and enlisted by all the critics, quote, Hollywood got the internet's biggest boogeyman wrong. We're gonna go off topic for a second about Slender-Man because this movie's quality and commercial failure has been a brewing fire inside my soul for the past 6 years. I'm more passionate about this than my major. The Slender-Man movie barely featured the character, and the ways it did were severely outdated and uninteresting. The movie mainly follows the kids who like articles and rumors. We got more action from an anonymous chat box that lured them instead of our tentacle haver himself. The film isn't even bad in a funny way, it just blows, and makes tentacles seem super fucking lame. The failure and how horrible this film was is a part of the reason why we pretty much never got anything further in the mainstream, and that upsets me, because even though it may be mid stories, I guess, part of me really wanted to see my internet boogeymen appear, which are many leads into where creepypasta lost its popularity, just becoming an internet phenomenon as a whole. The characters, stories, and mainstream failure are many of the notes on how it fell, but usually things fall after having a big rain. Despite the drop in popularity and the path creepypasta had, it still did have a significant impact on mainstream media and internet horror as a whole.
Another one of these.
The internet has and did face a huge shift thanks to creepypasta as a whole. From how horror is structured to creation of horror and likewise content, communities felt the shift in the air, and they knew. The dawn of pasta had changed us. Creepypasta grandfathered content such as ARGs and analog horror, two very popular forms of storytelling in today's era of internet-dwelling horror fiends. Creepypasta was one of the founding pillars that made small spaces for community into much larger ones. As while the internet was always forums and community, it never boomed quite like creepypasta did, and we benefit from that boom now with niche content and reservoirs of community and community content. Nowadays, you can hop into community spaces, even smaller spaces, AU spaces, and more. And while it wasn't all creepypasta that did this, a stepping stone is a stepping stone. Alternative subcultures also felt the creepypasta surge, as it was often a staple amongst 2000s alt kids to banter about their favorite pasta and why. Characters like Nina were hugely popular in the scene kid sphere as well as the art kid spheres. Many weird kids came together to create odd content, art, fashion/looks, and much more, all thanks to the love and appreciation for those dark, odd stories. Without creepypasta, we likely would be at a loss for some genuine gems that are timeless even now, like MMD's shitpost videos, the surge and mass popularity of sites like QuoteV, and the many, many, many Slender-Man references across all forms of media today. While not all pastas are well known, you could go to anyone of any generation, and it's more than likely they'll know Slender-Man in some capacity if they have a working phone. That right there is the power the culture creepypasta fans fostered. The flame lives on even today, while not as bright, still ever present and going through a resurgence.
Creepypastas weren't just those spooky stories for people to read. It was an active gateway for anyone and everyone to catapult their creativity into their fandoms or the public eye. Most, if not all, fandoms and groups at the time had some form of creepypasta community or story to float around in the mainstream. Nothing was safe from its clutches. Multiple communities and groups would face shifts in the entire fandom due to the small sections that would create pastas that would boom. Examples such as My Little Pony are a perfect and mainstream showcase because they had stories like Cupcakes and the Rainbow Factory fundamentally shift the fandom. Horror being in places it shouldn't and being in fandoms otherwise unassuming felt so new and cool and often added charm to the already enjoyable communities. Anyone being able to completely create a canon that could stretch outside of fanfiction was alluring. This helped with the blossoming communities even further, creating spaces where internet horror fans would indulge in these fandoms more because they liked the horror aspect that it introduced. There are forms of creepypasta media that were cuter to expand the fandom and added more people to the bunches. Comics such as The Seer and I Ate Pasta for Breakfast, and big animation makers like I Just Wanna Have Fun. That all brought an exciting look and paved way for more people to enjoy the media as a whole.
Creepypasta, while wonderful, has a history of not being very well written. However, it is through those errors that horror today, specifically e-horror, has gotten to where it is now. Intense and intricate stories don't come to people naturally in any capacity, and writing is a skill like any. The mistakes of others can help you avoid these same mistakes in your own work. Creepypasta paved the way for intense new stories and horror variants, while also laying the groundwork and mistakes for all our up-and-coming authors and creators of today. Mentioned earlier was analog horror, which I'm sure you're all familiar with. From Mandela catalogs to Greylock, Pastas built the stones used to build material like this and make space for it on the internet. Like all forms of horror, it was often snuffed out and censored when it came to people sharing their works, be it online or in IRL paperbacks. But through a mass effort and genuine appreciation for darker tales, we're able to enjoy disturbing content without fear of it being straight up nuked off the platform. Well, in most cases. Creepypastas were and still are a gateway for horror content online, sort of like a rite of passage. Communities and authors could play around with horrific ideas and dark stories but still have characters surrounded by the mundane and enjoyable, which created these stark contrasts of normality and genuine eldritch horrors, something we see mimicked in almost all horror today. Alongside all of that, Pastas gave us some new ways to mull over how to go about character-driven and non-character-driven horror. Characters like Eyeless Jack being mostly spoken about rather than to, Candle Cove being written and read through email. It is stories like that that helped foster a truly creative and energetic love for new ways to create twisted monsters and horrifying scenes. Pastas would find new and thrilling ways to create their worlds and monsters. Through this, people can see and internalize the idea that they're not limited to any horror tropes. Pastas helps show the internet that anything can be scary, any writing style can be used, any format, anything at all. From websites to web series, the possibilities have been and always will be absolutely endless.
I want to speak about my experience in this fandom and how my love for creepypasta garnered who I am now. Because not only did creepypasta impact the internet and many alike, but it impacted me as well.
Another one. What the fuck?
I have a confession. I called this pasta past his bedtime. It was a cold night in the winter of 2012. A young boy named Lanuari discovered a game that would send a chill down to his spine, one that would haunt him, a choice that would impale his eyes down to the vein for the remainder of his shortly lived days. Cart right into Slender-Man on Roblox. That's right, I heard of Slender-Man on a Google ad, on a free game site, and it made me find this game on Roblox. This was my first instance of discovering this fandom and the cesspool of what creepypasta even was. I was 8. Even though I discovered it in 2012 though, I really got into it in 2013. From here, I dove into all of the stories that were available. I read them online and I'd watch the videos, like the animations or even the story readings. My favorites were Jeff the Killer, Slender-Man, and the entire family as a whole. I know that's basic, but I just really liked Jeff the Killer. And with that, I loved the concept of the characters. So the iterations where they had a family dynamic were something I loved a lot. Oh my god, Jeff with the crazy fangirl and his lovely dog and Slender-Man wearing silly costumes. This is such a kawaii rendition of my otherwise intentionally scary characters. But me loving the family renditions weren't just out of the fact that I thought it was cute. It was because for the most part, it was the only way I could digest this media. The original images of Jeff the Killer and Smile Dog would incite countless nightmares and make it to the point where I couldn't sleep for weeks at a time. This stupid ass image and this other image would keep me up, quivering at night at the mere thought of these weird Photoshop monstrosities. I went into other pastas too. I had a minimal interest in the Rainbow Factory and Fluttershy's Rage.
No! No!
After a few months, I created fan groups on the great platform of Roblox to showcase my love for the fandom. I made 2 games, don't get too excited, they're not that good, to have meetings to talk about our love for pastas and all of their killers. This is one of the games. It's just like, you know, this is where the meetings took place over here. And, uh-oh, Benjon is here somewhere. Oh, there he is. So, this is another game. Once again, this is where the meetings take place. You got the whole little, like, family over here. I don't know why. Some of you bitches don't need to be here. Creepy? There is a statue of my one love forever. After the fan club and OCs, my love for it grew even stronger to where I learned the real reason why I liked Jeff the Killer the most. We read a story. It isn't Shakespeare. It was because, it's not because he was a cool character, it was because it was a sign of development. Nevertheless, I found most of the cast interesting in their own right. I loved the concept, I loved the art, I loved the music, and For the longest time, I actually didn't indulge in real games, like The Arrival or The 8 Pages, not until about 5 years later. And my reasoning for this isn't because I was a poser, since I engaged in the fandom in every other way, it was because I was still that terrified kid who would have nightmares about these characters, no matter how much I glamorized their silliness. All of them dancing the silly animation memes wasn't going to change my fear, not for a long time. The games now are really good though. In the end, it leads to my love today, and I owe Creepypasta a great debt. My love for the supernatural and dark art kind of spawned with this silly fandom in the first place. Discovering it so young may seem a bit crazy, but I think in the long run it most definitely catapulted me into celebrating that kind of thing on the internet. What started as cart riding into Slender-Man and extra liking the story of Jeff the Killer for a specific reason, plus having the dog give me nightmares, and trying to download the Minecraft mod gave my computer a virus, it has led into a great love, and something I'm forever grateful for. No matter what the quality may be deemed as today, I have an undying love for such a genre. Is it because he's being, like, controlled? Like, is that what makes him, like, have the strength of not a 14-year-old? Because
that's kind of the implication.
Because, like,
the operator in some way is tied to the feeling.
Because, like, a 14-year-old, you can just go, whoop!
That the operator has something to do with it, but it wouldn't be that much, because it's still like 14-year-old bones. You could still...
14-year-old bones is crazy talk.
I'm not fat. Resolution.
Feeling like you losing now. My mascara is running now. It's all red on the ceiling now. My mascara is running now. Never dream you had